The war between the land and the sea is upon us. Depending on when you see this, the first 2 episodes will be airing very soon or may have already aired. Either way, this series is extremely anticipated, being the first Doctor Who spin-off since Class in 2016, and we all know how that went. Towards the end of November, we received a new trailer for the upcoming show. Executive producer Pete McTighe spoke on its creation on the Whoniverse show, and a sneak peek at famous composer Lorne Balfe's score with the release of Barclay's theme on streaming platforms. The entire soundtrack is due for release on the 5th of December. Are you excited for the war between? Let me know in the comments, and welcome to This Month in Doctor Who. To coincide with the release of The War Between the Land and the Sea, announced as a double bill of episodes 1 and 2 on the 7th starting at 8:30 p.m, we got an announcement of a special cut-down version of the iconic 70s serial The Sea Devils. The cut-down Sea Devils will be 90 minutes in length, cutting out about an hour of the original broadcast. It will feature an enhanced score from Lorne Balfe, composer of The War Between, and an updated sound design by Mark Ayres. There was a lot of criticism regarding this release over on X, initially even from myself. People were quick to criticise the unnecessariness of this release, especially considering the similar omnibus release in 1972, as well as controversies surrounding editor Ben Cook. However, many fans defended this release simply by stating that if you don't want to watch it, then don't. And that at the end of the day, this is a good thing for those new to Doctor Who, whether that be classic Doctor Who or even just The War Between the Land and the Sea. Now, speaking of scores, on Doctor Who's 62nd birthday, we got the official release for the long-awaited Series 10 soundtrack announced last month, that being the 12th of December, 12/12, with a 2-disc release containing 61 tracks from the return of Doctor Who Mysterio, the return of Doctor Mysterio through Series 10 and ending with Twice Upon a Time. Doctor Who fans have been pining for this release for nearly 8 years now, and we finally got it. To promote the release, we also got an exclusive look at track number 39, Glimpse of Freedom, which I believe is from Lie of the Land, correct me if I'm wrong. We can finally put our pitchforks down and write Doctor Who Series 10 soundtrack CD on our Christmas list. With that being said, it's Soundtrack Central this month, with BBC Audio having concluded their range of classic Who novelisation audiobooks with Doctor Who and the Loch Ness Monster last month. They're now able to explore even more areas of Doctor Who in audiobook form. The first of which being Mission to Magnus by Philip Martin and read by Nicola Bryant. Mission to Magnus was one of the proposed stories for season 23 before it became The Trial of a Time Lord, with it eventually being written by its original writer Philip Martin as the final story in the short-lived missing episode novelisation range, alongside The Nightmare Fair by Graham Williams and The Ultimate Evil by Wally K. Daly. And much like those two, was eventually re-released as part of the Big Finish Lost Stories range. Whilst Big Finish's adaptations are more so reinterpretations, this audiobook is simply a direct reading of the 1990 novelisation, and so I'm sure we can expect the same treatment for the other 2 stories in due course. In fact, other audiobooks are due for release in 2026, such as the novelisations for the 70s audio drama Doctor Who and the Pescatons and the 80s radio drama Slipback. Doctor Who and the Pescatons was of course a very unique release in the 70s, being released on vinyl, and we similarly had 2 vinyl releases / announcements in November as well. On the 19th, the missing episode The Wheel in Space was announced to receive a swanky 3 LP release for its soundtrack on the 13th of February 2026, having previously been released on CD in May 2004 and as part of the Lost TV Episodes Collection 5 in August 2012 and May 2021. And announced in October, we got the release of Record Store Day exclusive 2 LP release of the 2010 New Series Adventures story The Last Voyage by Dan Abnett. There's even more audio related news from November, but let's take a break and look at some more visual material instead. The first in a new 15th Doctor Titan Comics range released with its first issue of the Prison Paradox early in the month. This features Belinda's first Titan Comics appearance as her and the Doctor infiltrate an alien prison, which reminds me a little bit of the New Series Adventures novel The Monsters Inside. More issues will be releasing over the coming months, with the collected graphic novel due for release in spring 2026. The Art of Time Travel is a unique new release from BBC Books, showcasing the work from Doctor Who, Torchwood and Sarah Jane Adventures concept artist Peter McKinstry, including notes from showrunner Russell T Davies. McKinstry's work behind the scenes ran from 2004 to 2010, and he was a driving force behind the visual imagery of that era. The Time Lord Fairy Tales is getting another release, this time in paperback. Originally releasing in hardback with 15 stories in October 2015, we got a cute little slipcase edition with little books for all of them a year later with a new story, The Emperor Dalek's New Clothes by Justin Richards. Now, just less than 10 years later, in August 2026, the Time Lord Fairy Tales return in a regular paperback edition with a new 17th story that will feature the Fugitive Doctor and Martha, written by Janelle McCurdy, author of a story in both the Adventures Before and Adventures After books. Bad news though, the 5th installment in the new Icons novella series that began with Frida Kahlo and the Skull Children in October 2024 has been pushed back again. Initially due for release in October, it was pushed back to July 2026 and now will be released on the 18th of March 2027, which is crazy to think that 4 of those books have released in like around a year, and now the 5th one is going to take another like year and a half. Very odd. But thankfully, the newest addition to the long-running new series Adventures, The Moon Cruise by Esme Chikiemi Pearson, was released. The Doctor and Belinda land on a luxury space liner under the watchful eye of its nefarious owner, Marilyn Moon. Esme Chikiemi Pearson previously wrote the novelization of The Church on Ruby Road and spoke on the Moon Cruise's creation on the Hooniverse show. Keelan Dunn also read the story for an audiobook available both digitally and as a CD. Oh, there we go. Back onto audio talk. There really is a lot of Doctor Who audio stuff from November, and a lot of it actually isn't Big Finish. Caught in the Web and Other Stories is a BBC audio creation due for release on the 5th of March 2026, collecting stories from the pages of the Doctor Who annual. With The Devil Birds of Corbo from annual 1967, Grip of Ice from annual 1970, The Eye Spiders of Pergros from annual 1977, Caught in the Web from annual 1971, Winter on Mesik from annual 1984, and finally Day of the Dragon from annual 1985. That's not all though from BBC Audio for this 5th of March release next year. There's also a new First Doctor adventure in Starflight by Paul Hayes and read by Christopher Naylor. The 12th Doctor Novels Volume 1 features full-length novel readings of The Blood Cell by James Goss, Silhouette by Justin Richards, and The Crawling Terror by Mike Tucker, read by Colin McFarlane, Dan Starkey, and Neve McIntosh, respectively. And finally, the Myths and Legends collection, featuring the novelization readings of The Underwater Menace, The Monster of Peladon, Image of the Fendal, Dragonfire, and The Eaters of Light, read by Annika Wills, John Colshaw, Louise Jameson, Bonnie Langford, and Rebecca Benson. Let's just get it over with. You can't avoid Big Finish, so what did they get up to in November? Well, Big Finish just kept adding to their list of mildly concerning marketing choices with a release that seems great on paper, but really makes no sense. To celebrate 20 years of Doctor Who returning, Big Finish have created a collection of audio adventures featuring Doctors 9 to 13, as well as the War and Fugitive Doctors. Meant as a sample for these Doctors, here's what you get for the low price of £30. Sphere of Freedom by Nicholas Briggs, the first release from the 9th Doctor Adventures in 2021, although of course you'd have to then purchase the box set again for the other 2 stories if you wanted to continue it. That's another £30. I suppose we should just be glad that they didn't choose the 9th Doctor Chronicles. Infamy of the Zaros by John Dorney, the first release from the 10th Doctor Adventures Series 2 in 2017, and God knows why they chose this one and not something like Death and the Queen or Out of Time. The Calendar Man by A.K. Benedict from the 2018 11th Doctor Chronicles Volume 1, although again, you'd have to buy it again to listen to that box set for another £30, with fans also pointing out that they could have chosen something from the popular Big Finish companion Valerie, such as Geronimo from 2022. Field Trip by Una McCormack from the 12th Doctor Chronicles Volume 1, where you'd again have to spend £30 to complete that box set, which again could have been instead a story from Volume 2 or 3 with the unique companion Kira Sandstrom, which are also much cheaper. Vampire Weekend by Tim Foley makes the most sense. It was released this year and it was the first story in the 13th Doctor Adventures. The Innocent by Nicholas Briggs from 2015's The War Doctor, Only the Monstrous. I mean, you couldn't have picked an older War Doctor story. And finally, Fast Times by Robert Valentine from the Fugitive Doctor Adventures, which is also fine because the range only started in January anyway. Moving on, the 11th Doctor Adventures is here. For as long as they've existed, the 11th and 12th Doctors in Big Finish audio stories have been portrayed by Jacob Dudman for the most part in the phenomenal Doctor Chronicles range since 2018, and most recently with You Only Die Twice in March 2024 as his final contribution. Dudman was brought on to play these roles due to his iconic impressions on YouTube, so now that he's stepped down and Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi aren't showing up anytime soon, these Doctors are due a change of range. So in comes the 11th Doctor adventures with another popular Doctor Who YouTuber, Miles Taylor, at the helm. Miles, known as Tailored Vision online, has created and starred in his own Doctor Who fan audios over the years, and honestly is, in my opinion, one of the only people who have pulled something like that off to a professional standard. Miles will put his perfect 11 impression to work in the box set The First Question, which includes The Final Cut by Lisa McMullen, The Tourist Trap by Beth Axford, and A Delusion of Witches, also by Lisa McMullen. And with this release, we also get a new 11th Doctor companion in Eleanor, portrayed by Jasmine Bays, who appeared as Corporal Alice Sullivan in the 2024 Season 1 finale. Keeping the New Who theme running, the third story in the new 13th Doctor Adventures, released with Lionesses in Winter by Lisa McMullen, seeing 13 and Yaz gate-crashing Henry II's family Christmas, and will be followed up with Ride or Die by Roshana Patel in January 2026, when the duo face the terrifying Banshee, potentially the same Banshee from the 4th Doctor Adventures Cry of the Banshee by Tim Foley in June this year. The newest 8th Doctor Adventures box set, entitled Causeway, was released. Here we have only 2 stories in Lost Amongst the Stars by Roshana Patel and a 2-parter, The Time You Never Had by Tim Foley. This box set sees the trio reach the Causeway, a word that has been found throughout the group's adventures since Audacity in December 2023. It wouldn't be Doctor Who without our good friend Benny. The new adventures of Benny Summerfield Volume 9, The Dalek Eternity 3, released less than 2 weeks after the second part. Here we have 2 more Dalek Central stories in Quisling by Sophia McDougall and We Don't Talk About Mavic Chen by Tim Foley, which sees the introduction to Mavic Chen's nephew Sydney. The final part to The Dalek Eternity will be released next month with the final 2 stories. The end of the beginning is here for the Torchwood Monthly range. Last month, Big Finish announced that the nearly 10-year-long Torchwood Monthly range would be coming to an end with 4 final stories. The first being The Flawless Man by Stuart Pringle and Lauren Mooney, seeing Andy investigating the spooky fallout from an unfinished horror film in the realms of Blair Witch and Cannibal Holocaust. The next release will be Everyone's Dead on Floor 3 by James Goss in January 2026. And finally, for Big Finish, Volume 14 of their Short Trips range was announced, with Impeccable and Other Stories being released in February 2026. Impeccable by George Cook, read by the Master himself, Eric Roberts, and in the realms of the Master series universe. Hard Feelings by Philip Lawrence, read by Nissa actress Sarah Sutton as she's hunted by a lone Cyberman. Cut Out by Dominic Polion, read by Duncan Wisby, and handily has a main character with the writer's exact name. Bring Me the Head of Dorian Maldivar by Nick Slavich, read by Peter Forbes in the 12th Doctor universe. The Tip of the Mind by Peter Angelides, penned as a conversation with Dr. Sandra Ertemann, performed by Bunny Summerfield actress Lisa Bowerman. And finally is Anybody There by Benjamin Mackenzie, read by Bronte Barb in the 9th Doctor universe. I'm a big Short Trips fan, primarily as I feel it's usually decent bang for buck when they're on sale and are usually pretty separated from unnecessary lore. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about Doctor Who magazine. This month, issue 623 saw a focus on the wonderful Carol Ann Ford, the oldest companion from Doctor Who, the Doctor's granddaughter, Susan. There are features on the creation of Susan, behind the scenes, and the casting/auditions that took place. Key amongst everything here is a 20-page interview, over 20-page interview with Carol Ann Ford on her life before, during, and after Doctor Who, and Ford gives incredible insights and unique opinions as to her experiences surrounding the Doctor Who universe, and I'd massively recommend picking this up if you haven't already. Also in this issue, we have the second part in new comic strip that started last month called Field Trip. There was also a new special edition of Doctor Who magazine, this time with a focus on the Daleks' creator, Terry Nation. Editor Marcus Hearn spoke in Doctor Who magazine that we think a tribute to Nation is long overdue, which surely can't be further from the truth. I feel like I see this man in my dreams. I feel like if there's one person that gets talked about in terms of creating things in Doctor Who the most, it's Terry Nation. Alas, this special features unpublished interviews, deep dives into Nation's Doctor Who stories and a chat with his children. Wow, okay. I feel like my ears can't keep up. Over 60% of all releases and announcements in November were audio related in some way, whether that was soundtracks, readings, and more. In fact, only about half of those were Big Finish, so it's actually been quite a slow month for them. Perhaps they're winding down for Christmas. I warn you, do not look at their Christmas schedule. They did not slow down. The main thing to look out for in December is, of course, the war between the land and the sea. This time next month, we will have seen the entire series, episodes 1 to 5, beginning to end, and I'm really optimistic and hoping for something Children of Earthy. I mean, Colin McFarlane wouldn't be back as Austin Pierce from that series for nothing, right? Let me know what you're looking forward to in the war between, and if there was any releases from November that you were particularly fond of. Thanks for watching.